Hi, I'm Debbie from the Quilt Journal, and today we're going to be talking about twisted squares. They're the second in a free motion quilting ruler twisted design series videos that I've been doing. These designs are so easy, but they look really impressive and complicated. I'm quickly going to recap. Last week we did twisted triangles, which was a beautiful design, and these have a similarity to them, showing how they're stitched out. Now, when I drew these out, these are 4-inch blocks, and this one at the end is 3.5, and I went ahead and drew that in so that you can see how much fudge factor and how forgiving this design is if you were going down a border and everything didn't just march out perfectly, that this still can work for you. On these, I went around it with the ruler in a clockwise fashion each block, and it gives you this twisted square design that I call these kind of spools in the middle. The next one, there again, 4-inch blocks, and you do need to outline stitch your blocks because they become the framework from which you do your ruler work on this free motion quilting. These were worked in a clockwise and then a counterclockwise way all the way down, giving you this fan-like appearance. And I want to show you this compared to last week. This is last week's with the triangle. They're a little bit more spiky looking, harder looking, not as flowy as when you go to the square, but this is the triangle and this is the square, and it just kind of has such a flourish and flow to it. And lastly, I want to show you this. I did as kind of, if you have a big area and you want to do a background fill. These are all 4-inch squares, and I work them in a clockwise, a counterclockwise, a clockwise, and then a counterclockwise fashion around. And you can just see, how much of a flourish and flow that these have to them. Now, having said that, last week we did draw them out, and I don't want to spend a lot of time recapping that, but just as a refresher, here is my 4-inch blocks that I've outlined. We'll say we outline stitch them. I'm going to put my needle down on the outline stitch, and my ruler is about 1/4 of an inch. You can do them closer together, an 1/8 of an inch, excuse me, if you'd like. And I stitch up to and touch the outline stitch again. And go on up, touch that line. I'm trying to keep my arms out of the way of the camera for you. And come on down. Your needle would be in that down position and come around, and then as you touch, you would come around. You'd be about your 1/4 of an inch or so away and come around. Now I am going around this block in a counterclockwise fashion. So if you want the spools, they would all have to be going in the same direction, clockwise, counterclockwise. You can also mix them together. I've done that, making a mistake, and they turn out with a lot of texture and flow to them also if you have spools mixed in among the fans, and they're quite pretty. Okay, so you guys get the feel. That's a good review, and you can see how the square is beginning to twist. Let's take it over to the sewing machine and do a stitch out. Okay, as you can see, I have a head start. I've gotten started with my design so that you can see the beautiful movement that this twisting squares gives you. Okay, I have already done my outline stitching. As I said to you earlier when we did the draw out, that your blocks, I feel, need to be stitched out. It does two things. It gives your quilt some stability. And it provides the framework that you need to build your design in. I have my ruler foot on, and I have stitched up and stopped right on the previous stitch line, and I've had my ruler foot butted up, my ruler butted up against my ruler foot, excuse me, and I have the edge of my fine line ruler right on the line where I want it to go. It is exactly 1/4 of an inch from the center, from my needle to the edge of my ruler foot. That's, I guess, what I'm saying here. Stop on the line, put it on the edge, and bring it on down. As I said, I am using Accents in Design fine line rulers. I love these rulers for the sit-down quilter, especially. I guess anybody could use them. I really love them with the little peg handles. Really helps you to move the fabric underneath the needle. And the hook and loop tape equally holds my fabric very stable. Now I still wear my machine gears. I guess I'm just a creature of habit. They just make me feel a little more stable. Now I ran off on my previous line just a little bit. I am shooting this through the camera, so sometimes when it's a little bit difficult for me to see from my position here exactly where I am sometimes, especially that pass closest to me. This design, I have worked in the clockwise counterclockwise design that gives you these fan type shapes, as opposed if they were all clockwise you would get, I can hear my cuckoo going off, the spools or like the bunches of wheat kind of design to them. These are very Zentangle. I was on Pinterest, and I guess there is a gentleman that came up with the idea of Zentangle, and I guess this particular design is referred to as Rick's Paradox. I'm not really sure when that came out, because this is a design that I have seen now for quite a while. I am using Superior's 50 weight So Fine in my upper thread path. And I have a Magna Glide Classic 60 weight in my bobbin. I have chosen this creamy white color for demonstration purposes only. If I was going to do this as a background fill on my quilt, I would, there again, choose something that blend it with my background, so that the thread wasn't in my face as much as seeing the movement and the texture would be. But, you know, that is totally up to you. There is no right or wrong. Some people really love that thready look. So the choice is yours. I was talking about my ruler foot. I'm actually sewing this out on my APQS George, which is a sit-down long arm. But it really doesn't matter. The process is the same whether you're doing this on your domestic or a sit-down long arm. You're still moving the fabric under the needle. And if you're on your domestic, which I had free motion for years on my domestic sewing machine, if you're going to do ruler work, though, I think you really need to get a ruler foot. I think it's so much safer. I have seen people try to butt these long arm rulers up against a darning foot, but they are very thin, and I think you're kind of courting disaster if that slips underneath that ruler. And it could come down and you could end up with a repair bill. Let me cut these threads. They keep getting caught in that hook and loop tape. You can make these squares in any size you want. These are 4-inch squares, the same as I drew out on the samples prior to doing the stitch out. But you could do 2-inch squares, you could do 10-inch squares. These twisted geometric designs are really versatile and have a lot of fudge factor in them, which I love too, to make them fit into different spaces. This stitch out is taking a little longer than last week's triangle. The 4-inch square just has a lot more stitching on it. For more information on this design and others, just visit my blog at www.thequiltjournal.com. Now, as I'm working my way into the center of this, I will tell you that after you make 20 passes around to get to the center. Sometimes your squares from block to block to block may not all turn out being the same size. And that may not be a problem for you, especially if you are not using a contrasting thread. But for me, it does irk me a little bit. And so my suggestion to you would be, let's see if I can get another little piece in there. I'll put it this way. To bring this in and make this as small of a piece as possible. Okay, and then backtrack out. Oops. And that's all there is to it. A really beautiful design that is just so simple to do. Thanks for watching. Bye.